Welcome to the Morrison Report. Hosted by Deval Morrison, sales representative for Bosley Real Estate Limited Brokerage. Ms. Morrison has co-authored the best-selling book, Success Today, with Brian Tracy, and has been interviewed on NBC, ABC, and CBS affiliates by Bob Guinea from The Bachelor. Deval, a real estate investor, has spoken to many attendees at her real estate seminars and is currently ranked in the top 5% of agents in her brokerage. Join me in welcoming your host, Deval Morrison.
Welcome. Thanks for listening. You are listening to the Morrison Report, Real Estate Insights for Toronto. So today what I really wanted to talk about is those first-time home buyers and what a hard time they're having in the marketplace right now, given the price points of where things are sitting right now in the city of Toronto. And obviously it's great for current homeowners that we've obviously made a great amount of money on our real estate at the moment, but it's very difficult for first-time home buyers to get into the market. So let's go over a couple of things about what they need to know and why should they still consider getting involved in the real estate market. I mean, really, maybe they should just keep renting because renting is easier in the market, so difficult. Well, for me, it's all about why buy real estate. And I would say you have to buy real estate because, number one, we all know the market is changing, but the mortgage rates are set at an all-time low right now. When you purchase a property, it really acts as a forced savings, and it really helps you to build equity in the long run. You know, I always say to people, imagine being retired 60 or 65 and still having to pay rent. What I love about owning real estate and why I think it's really important for first-time home buyers to get in the market is because at some point when they retire, this way they will own their own home, their mortgage will be paid off, and they will have a place to live rent-free, which I think is really important. You know, sure, you can say it's great to be a renter. It's very cheap right now, but for a lot of renters, they have to keep moving around because their landlords want to sell the properties that they're currently living in. So they don't end up staying there forever, and it's this constant shifting and moving around, and you never really have a place to call home. One thing I love about owning real estate is that it actually does act as a forced savings plan. I always read in the media and people say, oh, you know, you could just save money instead. You could pay rent and save the balance in your RSP or some sort of investment account. But that's not really realistic for the average person. For me, and I think for most other real people, we just need the forced savings. If you've got the mortgage payment, you know that a good chunk of that money is actually going to be going towards paying yourself first and not paying off your landlord. The challenge with having a landlord, of course, as much as I love being a landlord myself, is that you're paying somebody else's mortgage. And wouldn't it be nice to pay your mortgage off first? I think that's one of the really important things about building a nest egg for yourself. I think also owning real estate is one of the fastest ways to achieve wealth. My accountant always says to me that, you know, he's looked at people's books over the last 30, 40 years, and he can really truly see that the big difference in those who are doing well and those who are not doing well is those who own real estate. And he can see over time that owning the real estate has really helped build their portfolio. There's no capital gains tax on primary residence. So if you do own your own home and you choose to sell, and it's made quite a bit of money, as a lot of the houses have in the Toronto marketplace right now, at least you get to keep that money tax-free, which is another huge advantage to owning real estate. Also, the values, as we've seen in the city again, have kept increasing and increasing. You're almost looking at people doubling the worth of their property every 6 or 7 years. And for a lot of people in the city, I think they're really seeing that their house actually is making more money on an annual basis than they are in their regular jobs. Where can you earn that kind of return but in real estate? The other great thing about purchasing real estate is that you don't have to use all of your own money because the banks will loan you up to 95% of the value of the home. So again, it's a great way to get into the market because you don't actually have to play with all of your own money to get into the market in the first place. So those are some of my reasons why I'd say it's very important for first-time home buyers to get in the market. And also, it's a place to call home. It's a place where you can hang your hat and paint and do renovations, and a place where you can start a family or have friends and family over. So I think it's a really good, important thing, and I think it really does sort of help you to build that root base that you know you've got a place to call home and a place you're going to stay. So if we look at the average prices in Toronto, they have definitely skyrocketed over the last couple of years, and in particularly this year for sure. We are looking at well over semi-detached houses and detached houses for the most part being worth over $1 million in the city. So it does make it very difficult for first-time home buyers to get into the market, and many of them are starting to look at condos. And condos are certainly a great way to go for first-time home buyers. I know that's what I did. I started off back in, I think, 2001. I bought my first condo. I think I paid $201,000 for this condo. It was a 1+ den, which in today's standards, it would have been called a 2-bedroom. And it was just over 800 square feet. So it was big. I think my biggest regret is that I actually sold that condo. I should have never sold it. I should have kept it. I should have used the equity from that condo and bought my next house, which I didn't know how to do at the time, which I certainly know how to do now. And the condo prices right now are getting harder and harder as well, too. I have a first-time home buyer that I'm working with, and she's just increased her budget to about $350,000. And I'm starting to see how few condos are coming in the market now in the Toronto market downtown for that price point. It's becoming very difficult even for first-time condo buyers to really get into the market at a cheaper price point, too. And, for people who are coming into the market first time, they really need to weigh why buy a house versus why buy a condo? What are the advantages and disadvantages of both options? One thing about condos is they're certainly more affordable. They've got great amenities. They're super safe. In some cases, there's a doorman waiting for you, again, to keep you super safe. There's very minimal upkeep. There's no lawns to mow. There's no snow to shovel. There's no unexpected repairs. So it's super convenient to live in a condo. Of course, one of the advantages of living in a house is because there's low supply, there's more demand. So the value is going to increase a lot faster than owning that condo. And the house, let's face it, is going to offer you a lot more space than the condo will. And it can always accommodate changes to your family. And you can get access to the outdoors fairly simple. It's not about stepping out into a balcony. You can just step right outside into your backyard. And improvements will have a huge impact on that house. So whether you're doing a kitchen reno or a bathroom reno or finishing a basement, they will add a huge impact to the value of your home. Some of the disadvantages of owning a house, of course, is that it's more expensive. And as we've seen in the Toronto marketplace, you could either spend, I would say you probably need to spend at minimum at least $700,000 to get a decent house in the city, and you're still going to need to do a couple of minor renovations. Or at the minimum, you're going to have to spend close to $400,000 for a condo. So that difference is huge, and obviously it depends on how much money you've got and what's in your budget. So with a house, you definitely have increased upkeep. You might have some unexpected repairs when it comes to a roof that needs to be done. Most of the housing stock in Toronto is old, let's face it. We are dealing with 100-year-old homes. So you're always going to need to do a little bit of tweaking and work to that home unless it was built brand new for you. But other than that, these houses are going to require some ongoing work and maintenance, and you just have to get used to that and wrap your head around that as a first-time home buyer. Some of the disadvantages to condos is it's hard to accommodate with kids. Although now more and more we are certainly seeing people raising kids in condos. That's something that's certainly happening more and more. We've got less space in the condo, and you've got limited access to outdoors, and then there's those maintenance fees. And those maintenance fees, unfortunately, never go down. They always stay up. So that's a bit of a challenge for people who live in condos, is that those maintenance fees, unfortunately, never go down. And if you're living in a building where the utilities are all included, you're now always so paying for everybody else's utility use, which might not sit so well with you. I know for me, I would certainly prefer to have a condo building where the utilities are not included. So I'm only paying for what I use as opposed to paying for everybody else's utilities. Some of the ways that first-time home buyers can get into the market and not have to spend so much money on a monthly basis would be to buy a home that has a basement apartment. That's certainly something that I've done. I get $1,100 a month out of my basement apartment, and it really does help me pay the bills, and it's a huge advantage to people. The great thing about having a basement apartment as well is that it gives you tax deductions. So if you're going to go spend some money on fixing the roof, well, now you can write off a third of that cost of fixing the roof because a third of your home is being used as a rental property. You can also, with your utility bills, write off a third of your utility bills, assuming that you're renting out your basement apartment. Now, if you do things in the opposite frame, where you live in the basement apartment and you rent out the upper floors, now you could write off 2/3 of your expenses for your home. So those are some of the advantages of having an income suite. It also helps to pay maintenance costs, and it protects against income loss. So if you're a single person owning a home, or if you're a couple owning a home, having that basement apartment income coming in is almost like having a second or third income coming in. And it can certainly help you to help contribute towards your mortgage payments, which is huge. Unfortunately, Toronto is, of course, not becoming as affordable as it once was, but people do need to find more creative ways of purchasing property in the city. And whether that's going to the bank of mom and dad and giving them a little nudge and reminding them that they're probably no longer paying for a mortgage anymore, and could they give you a little $100,000, $200,000 gift, that's certainly a way that a lot of people in the city have been getting into the housing market right now. If you can't do an income suite, perhaps you can get a loan or a gift from one of your parents or a family member. And then there's also buying a property with friends. So I've certainly heard of people who are buying properties together, like in a duplex. One person might live on the second and third floor and somebody else lives on the main and the basement floor. And they have a shared ownership plan going on. And that way it allows them to be able to get the advantages of a house, but without having to pay the huge bills of a house, which is huge. So, where does somebody go for affordable homes in the city of Toronto? I used to send my clients out to the east end of the city for affordable homes, but even that neighborhood is becoming more and more expensive, which I'm saying that people are needing to spend at least minimum $700,000 just to get a home in the east end of the city. I would think if you go out a little bit east of Maine, Danforth and Maine area, you can get things that are a little bit cheaper. The west end of the city is also now starting to become cheaper than the east end of the city. And so if you look around St. Clair and Weston Road, in the Rockcliffe Smythe area, where in the area between St. Clair and Eglinton, close to Rogers Road, west of Dufferin, you're seeing cheaper homes in those neighborhoods. And that's certainly a way for people to get into the market, because right now those areas are cheap, but unfortunately they will not be cheap for long, because a lot of first-time home buyers have to go to those neighborhoods, and over time they are driving up the prices. As I mentioned, I used to send my clients out to the East End, Danforth, Greenwood, Coxwell, but those areas are starting to get expensive. And Leslieville is oh so trendy now that to get into Leslieville, you need $800,000 to $1 million just to get a home. So things are getting very, very tricky. So other things that first-time home buyers should look for when they're purchasing houses, it's important to get a home inspection. And when I say get a home inspection, I don't mean rely on the seller's home inspection that they've left for you. Although some agents will tell you that's good enough, it's simply not good enough. It's important to have your own home inspection. Walk through that house and make sure that everything is okay and you are okay with fixing everything. Now keep in mind, when a home inspector walks through a house, their job is to pick out every single flaw possible, and they do. So you also have to sort of take that with a grain of salt, because you have now heard everything bad about the house. So you have to keep that in mind, just to kind of give yourself a reality check that the whole house is not falling apart. But again, keep in mind we're dealing with the Toronto real estate market, where these houses are well over 100 years old, so they're going to need things. And your inspector cannot see through the walls. So it's great to have a home inspection, but you also have to keep in mind that they don't have radar vision. This is not Superman or Spider-Man, and there are things that they might not be able to see as well. If you're going to be going into a multiple offer situation, I'd always recommend get that home inspection done before you put in that offer, so that you don't have a home inspection clause or condition in your offer, because the market is so competitive right now that no one is going to accept a home inspection condition on any offer they receive these days. Of course, assuming you're in a multiple offer situation. If there's only one offer, then go for it. Put in that home inspection clause. But if you're in a multiple offer bidding war situation, then I highly recommend make sure you get that home inspection done beforehand. How else can you buy smartly as a first-time home buyer? You can make sure that you overlook the clutter and the cosmetic flaws at home. Many people love that shiny new object. It's why staged homes sell so well, because that's what people want. People want to see move-in ready, and I'm finding that a lot of the first-time home buyers right now, because they're currently living in a condo, everything is brand new for them. So when they walk into a house, they want to see that same brand newness. And of course, that doesn't exist. And so they have a hard time overlooking the fact that the house is old, and there might be plaster on the walls, and the floors don't look so new, and the kitchen cabinets aren't that new either. The thing to keep in mind is IKEA